The Great Peacemaker. Our original vision saw the maintenance of integrity among American peoples. Had it succeeded, American-European exchange would have been strictly educational, with the Native Americans teaching, healing, and consciously leading the warrior tribes out of darkness. Had the tribes of America not departed from our ways, these past 500 years of human history would have unfolded quite differently. It was not just the Europeans who shattered the peace. Europeans could not have transplanted their cultures on American soil had the peoples of the lakes remained true. And yet there is no judgment. In the America of 25 centuries ago, one incarnate in human form, with sensitive human heart, was bound to feel the emotional turbulence of the times. Our hope was that the truth our people had lived with so long would serve them during this age of purification, that they would feel the pressure of the fearful collective in their hearts, but not allow it to control them, remaining a race of healers and teachers. In fact, it did not work that way. In the people of South and Central America, where human predispositions had always been open, loving, and relaxed, the growing pressure of collective human consciousness began to manifest in a strange new tendency toward fearful ways of interpreting the events in the world around them. This naturally brought their egos to the forefront. Self-centered behavior was increasingly justified until it spread and became focalized in distorted city-states. Eventually, the people created what they feared: exploitative, hierarchical societies appeared where, for many thousands of years, there had been decentralized, peaceful, living in cooperation with the earth and her creatures. The people of the Americas had always had their challenges, but prior to this time, they were external challenges, the challenges of rock and wind, heat and rain, challenging human ingenuity to meet them with successful designs. Until now, the American tribes had not encountered the destructive challenges that arise from within when people are fearful and divided within themselves. Once the people of the bird tribes lost touch with their eternal spirits, they were as responsible for what the Europeans brought as the invaders themselves. They were left with no choice but to blend with the warrior tribes, that in the end all might again become conscious and whole. It was a dark hour, but not an hour without hope. The momentum of the larger cycles was still guiding all things inexorably toward eventual healing. Even after the fear crystallization of Aztecs, Incan, Mayan, Olmec, and Toltec peoples, there were still American tribes who remained true. Here and there, for a while, a few of us were incarnate and had influence: Quetzalcoatl, Daganoweda, White Buffalo Cowwoman, Ullacron, the Golden One of the Sun. But as the centuries wore on and the troubles increased, one by one we took to the air to fly into the spirit world, to withhold human incarnation until the great flowing tide of time should return again at the changing of the age. Bird tribes do not stay where not invited. We do not impose. We blend only when our egos make us welcome. We flutter gently into human circuitry to offer what we are, to blend only where there is openness and trust. We incarnated as long as we could in the Americas, but eventually the pressure of collective human consciousness, fearful as it was, created sufficient emotional turbulence that incarnation among the warrior societies became too painful for most light-hearted spirits of stars. By the time the first European settlers began meeting Native Americans, they were meeting people whose true native social order had been declining for over 2,000 years. By then, there were few of us incarnate as far south as the Great Lakes, Most of us had retreated inland to the mountains or far to the north. Toward the end we left even the north, without a trace, retreating disincarnate to the spirit world. We knew that the great ever-rolling cycles would bring our time to the earth again, and most of us were content to wait. I was one of the few who continued to put on material dress. For a time I sought to draw the nations of the North American forest into a pre-existing reality that the people of the true reality had once experienced. I knew that my efforts could only partially succeed during this age when the dominant human vibrations were fearful, but I also knew that the mission I set out to accomplish could greatly reduce the trauma of the pending European invasion. A confederacy of peaceful and cooperative tribes along the North Atlantic seaboard would provide a powerful center from which our energies could radiate during the troubled times that were approaching. Conceivably, our influence could spread from such a center, perhaps in time even reaching beyond the Great Lakes to touch the Mississippi and the people of the plains. In addition to the immediate value of the Confederacy to its member nations, the principles that guided the Confederate tribes would help to reduce the violence that would most likely follow in the wake of the massive European migrations, which were now but a few short centuries away. The Confederacy would heighten the level of conscious exchange for all the people of North America. It would establish a precedent in human consciousness, a template, a pattern that would subtly affect human thought for generations to come. It was a goal worth attempting. Even partial success would be of substantial long-term value. I gathered my awareness and prepared for my descent. I caused my spirit to glide over the forest of Ontario. From a tribe along the northern shore of the great inland sea, I felt the welcome of a family strong and brave. I was born and raised in the Huron way. In a Huron village I lived. As he who is now called the Great Peacemaker, I traveled among the Iroquois-speaking nations. I reminded them of the winged tribes available to help them, and of the sacredness of all life. I taught them that warfare makes one as vicious as one's enemies, and that to fight for any reason other than self-defense is to become what you detest. It was to the fiercest of the northeastern tribes that I first brought my message. To the Ganikahiga, the people of Flintstone, or Mohawks as they are called today. Though these were among the distant, much later descendants of the original bird tribes, many generations removed, they nevertheless retained a deep inner rhythmic feel for the truths I presented. I knew that if the Mohawks agreed to the intertribal peace, it would be easier to win over the other Iroquois nations, for the Mohawks were famed for their bravery and abilities in war, and the other tribes were sure to take an interest in any significant news regarding them. Among the Ganganihaga, I cannot pronounce that word, Ganienkehega, that's how it's spelled. Anyway, I'll read more in the next